Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone can hear me okay. You can just give me a couple head nods if so. All right, great. So welcome to today's Title IX committee meeting. Um, this one will be pretty, we'll stick to the agenda pretty tightly here as there is a school board meeting at 5:30, so we need to be done by 5. So I will go ahead and get started with the welcome. So the last time we met was May 26th, so that's a very long time ago. Since then, there has been a couple of changes with the school board and the superintendent. So I will allow Dr. Faust, who was with us, the new superintendent for New Hanover County Schools, to introduce himself and have a couple moments just to share a few thoughts and introduce himself.
Good afternoon, everyone. What a pleasure to be part of the Title IX committee. Just a couple things about myself. I have been Title IX trained, used to work with Title IX in one of the school districts. I held the portion of the student side of it, and then my counterpart, well, not my counterpart, but the person who was over HR did the adult. So we worked together with it. I have been to several meetings and used to keep up with the federal regs. I know there's some federal regulations that just came out that were updated, and unfortunately, I have not had the opportunity to update myself on the latest ones. I think those came out just March or so, somewhere in that arena. But I'm glad to be a part, and hopefully, I'll have some insight to add and help our district to continue to move forward in making sure that all are trained in Title IX and we understand what the rights of Title IX and how Title IX operates. So I will now yield my time now. Jarrell.
All right, can everyone hear me? Is that a little bit better? Stephanie in the chat. Regarding audio, I think my audio was low. So I can just hold my mic here. All right, so thank you and welcome, Dr. Faust. So with that said, I will go ahead and get started with some Title IX updates. So I have a little bit of a presentation here, so I'll go ahead and share my screen. Give me one moment. One moment, we're trying to get these Zoom technical issues worked out really briefly. All right, so regarding Title IX updates. So regarding since our last meeting on the 26th of May, of course, we did implement new Title IX regulations. These are the three policies, 1720, 1725, and 1726. These policies are in reference to the new regulations published by the U.S. Department of Education. So 1720 is essentially a non-discrimination statement on the basis of sex. 1725 is essentially the Title IX policy, and then 1726 is essentially the procedure for when there's a Title IX complaint, how we will operate once the complaint has been received. So as of this point, when it comes to the Title IX policies, right now we're developing the training and currently doing presentations to make sure that individuals within the system are up to speed on what their new responsibilities are and can respond appropriately. So in addition, we have revamped or are in the process of revamping the Title IX website. A major part of that is increasing the accessibility of the website. I've gotten numerous recommendations that individuals can't find the Title IX website within New Hanover County Schools site. So what we have done is at any New Hanover County Schools website, we have added a Title IX footer. So what that essentially means is that from any Title IX, any website associated with New Hanover County Schools, whether it's a school website or the main website, individuals can scroll to the very bottom and click on the Title IX tab, and then they will be able to see and access the Title IX website. From there, you can get the Title IX policies, notice of non-discrimination resources, training materials as those things are developed. And essentially, the goal is to be a one-stop shop for all district Title IX information, including the ability to report under Ethics 360. So regarding updates, there has been some impactful legal updates as well. Um, the first update is a case from the Fourth Circuit, U.S. United States Courts of Appeals, Fourth Circuit, and this is regarding Mr. Gavin Grimm versus Gloucester County School Board. So on 8/26/20, the United States Court of Appeals handed down this ruling and opinion. And essentially, a quick background is that Mr. Grimm is a transgender student, born a female, but identifies as a male. It was in high school in Virginia. And due to his transition with gender identity, he requested that his school call him by his new transgender name and pronouns, and also requested that the school allow him to use the restroom that is associated with his gender identity. Um, so what happened essentially is that the school did allow that for a good bit until word got out to the public. And then from there was some public backlash about the school's decision to allow the transgender student to use the bathroom that they identified with. And then from there, the school board enacted a policy that stated students must use restroom locker rooms that match their biological sex. So then Mr. Grimm sued the school board and claimed that the board's policy was unconstitutional based on Title IX and Equal Protection Clause. And so on 8/26, the United States Court of Appeals, Fourth Circuit, which North Carolina falls under, meaning that anything that they say or rule is binding on our New Hanover County schools. So what they ruled was that the board's action, Gloucester County School Board's actions, were unconstitutional and violated Title IX. So another legal update that's important here is that on August 31st, 2020, the Department of Education, OCR, issued a notice of investigation letter to Shelby County schools. And so with that, what happened is that the complainant alleged Title IX discrimination regarding sexual orientation by the school district, either by action or a school policy. So with the notice of investigation, what that means is that someone complained to OCR, and OCR has opened up an investigation of that based on that complaint. So what they're looking at, OCR is looking at, is whether Shelby County schools discriminated against the complainant due to the complainant's sexual orientation based on the school's policy or some type of school action. And so why this is important is because it confirms OCR's position that alleged discrimination based on sexual orientation or transgender status due to a school's action or policy may violate Title IX. But this does not include matters involving restroom or locker room or athletics. Regarding the last legal update, also on August 31st, OCR issued a letter of impending enforcement action against 6 Connecticut school districts. And so a letter of impending enforcement action means that someone made a complaint to OCR, and then from there, OCR investigated and made a determination and is trying to get the school districts, here the 6 Connecticut school districts, to comply with what OCR is requesting. So in this particular case against the 6 Connecticut school districts, the complainants alleged that the school districts and also the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference discriminated against female athletes by allowing transgender females to compete in single-sex girls track. So the issue that they were looking at is whether allowing transgender female athletes to compete in single-sex female sports violates Title IX. And essentially, the outcome based on OCR is saying that yes, if a school district allows transgender female athletes to compete in a single-sex female sport, that would violate Title IX, according to the Department of Education. So, a couple of notes here is that this did confirm OCR's position that schools violate Title IX by allowing transgender female athletes in single-sex female sports. It also confirms OCR's position that Title IX does not allow students to use single occupancy restrooms, locker rooms that match their gender identity. And also, another note is that the Department of Education is preparing to withhold $6 million in grants of these 6 Connecticut school districts unless they comply with the transgender athlete OCR regulations. So that's particularly important here because we have the Fourth Circuit and OCR operating in the same space. So based on the Fourth Circuit, the Gavin Grimm transgender high school case in Virginia, the Fourth Circuit said that transgender students are allowed to use multi-occupancy restrooms of the gender that they identify with. The Fourth Circuit also said that transgender students may request educational records and transcripts to be amended to match their gender identity. So anytime a transgender student is going through a transition, they may request with appropriate documentation that the school system update educational records moving forward, such as transcripts, as long as they have the appropriate documentation. So that's what came from the Fourth Circuit. When it comes to OCR, with those 2 letters that they sent out on the 31st of August, sexual orientation and transgender discrimination complaints against a school policy or action are Title IX issues, except athletics and restrooms. So going back to the Fourth Circuit, what that Gavin Grimm case means is that anytime a student requests an accommodation based on transgender status to use a single occupancy bathroom, a multi-occupancy bathroom, that means that we must allow them to do so. Generally in the past, we have offered a single occupancy, such as a nurse's bathroom or teacher's lounge bathroom, and we can continue doing that moving forward. But if a student requests the use of a multi-occupancy bathroom, the one that most students would normally use, based on the Fourth Circuit's interpretation, opinion, which is binding, then we cannot tell that student they cannot use that bathroom. So based on the Fourth Circuit Gavin Grimm case, I quickly thought of a couple of FAQs that individuals might ask based on that ruling that I get or others might want to know. And so one question is, will my child be required to use a bathroom with a transgender student? And based on the ruling from the Fourth Circuit in that Gavin Grimm case, the answer would be yes, particularly because uncomfortability in using a bathroom with a transgender student does not equate to a safety issue. So there's a bit of a distinction there. If there was a safety issue, then of course the school system could respond appropriately, but just because someone's uncomfortable based on the Fourth Circuit, that would not be enough to say that we wouldn't allow someone to use a multi-occupancy bathroom that's transgender. So how will we prevent students from pretending to be transgender in order to go into another bathroom? Essentially, the Fourth Circuit noted that that's not a issue that really routinely occurs. When anyone is going through a transition, they are genuine and will make it known. So the point of individuals, just making a claim or a lie to use a bathroom or utilize or gain access to a bathroom they wouldn't ordinarily utilize, that's just something that just doesn't happen that often. So I don't foresee that to be a problem. So what if a transgender student requests that their parent not be involved in any type of accommodation that they're asking of the school? Generally, when students request these type of accommodations, some have told their parents about their process, and most parents are actively supporting their students in these matters. But sometimes they don't, or sometimes students have not gotten to the point that they want to share this information with the parent. So if a transgender student requests an accommodation and that their parent not be involved, we would respond on a case-by-case basis. For example, if it's something like they're just requesting that their teacher call them by pronouns that match their identity or a new name that matches their identity and not actually requesting educational records to be changed or anything like that, then that's something we can generally accommodate without having to get parent involvement. However, in elementary school, I think what we would probably do is still notify the parent just to let them know what their child has requested, um, just so they can have those conversations at home. But it would be on a case by case situation. So, what if a parent does not agree with their child's transgender status or accommodation? So, of course, we're dealing with minors in the public school system here. So, if there's a transgender accommodation requested by a student, and the parent absolutely does not agree and does not want to have that accommodation put in place, what we would do, again, we would respond on a case by case basis. If it's a request from a student that doesn't involve a change of an educational record or like a bathroom accommodation or anything like that, generally we would abide by name change or pronoun usage. That would be fine. Um, However, things such as a bathroom accommodation, if the parent's not agreeing to that or doesn't want it, then I think that we would most likely have to lean towards the call of the parents. So also with transgender students, we have classes that involve physical activity. So how would we respond to a transgender student in an educational class that involves physical activity? How would they be graded? Um, so it is allowable for individuals that are going through a transition. For example, a student that was born a male that's transitioning to female. Um, if they participate in the boys section of gym, um, it is okay if we grade them as if they were still a biological female for grading purposes. So that's how we respond on a case-by-case basis there. Um, so what about other students mistreating a transgender student due to their transgender status? Most of the time in my experience, I think that kids are generally open and accepting of others and their differences. But in the case that we have students mistreating, harassing, discriminating against a transgender student based on their transgender status, that would, of course, violate North Carolina law regarding harassment bullying. So we would respond appropriately there. So last question, what about beliefs of employees with their religious beliefs or thoughts that may not be in line with transgender LGBTQ um, identity? So for employees at New Hanover County Schools, their personal beliefs and feelings would need to be left at the door when it comes to carrying out their responsibilities as a New Hanover County School employee. So if an employee does not want to accept or meet an accommodation that's been approved of a transgender student, we would have to respond through HR to make sure that they are following and meeting the responsibilities of their job. So based on these two, I know I've said a mouthful. Based on these two cases and updates, there are some areas that are still unknown, particularly when it comes to transgender students in athletics. We're not quite sure yet. That would be handled on a case-by-case basis. Also, for example, if a person is going through a transition, what dress code would apply to them? That would also be on a case-by-case basis. And overnight field trips. Individuals are staying overnight. What group would be the male group or female group, or other would an individual be included in? That's going to be another matter that has not been actually talked about in this Fourth Circuit Gavin Grimm case. So those areas are still unknown. So with this, there are a couple of legal conflicts here with the Department of Education, OCR, and the Fourth Circuit. So of course, OCR said that there's no protection for transgender students in athletics and restroom and locker room usage. However, the Fourth Circuit Gavin Grimm case does include protections for restroom and locker room usage. So we have Department of Education saying that transgender students must use the bathroom of their biological sex. And the Fourth Circuit says transgender students can use the bathroom that they identify with. So there's a legal conflict there. So if we were, New Hanover County Schools was put in that position, we'd have to do some discussion and figure out which law we would follow in that sense. So there is some conflict there. So a quick point about how we're actually handling these transgender accommodation requests. Generally, if a student tells an administrator or a teacher that they're requesting some type of accommodation for their transgender status. That would be funneled back to me either through the teacher directly or through the administration. And what I would do is put together a gender support plan meeting involving myself, administrator, counselor, parent, student, maybe even a teacher, depending on what the accommodation is. And then from there, we would review the requested accommodation and develop a written plan to make sure everyone's on board with what the accommodation is. And this would be done on a case-by-case basis. So that is all that I have regarding legal updates. I know that was a mouthful. I took you all to law school briefly, but those are important issues that implicate and actually affect New Hanover County schools. So I just wanted to give an overview of where we were on that matter. Next on the agenda, we're going to have discussions about the Title IX.
Jarrell,
Yes.
sorry. I think there was some discussion in the chat. Do you want to take a look at that before we
Yes,
move
I'll
on
look
to
at
make
the
sure to
chat.
answer those?
Yes, let me get 1 second to look at these questions. So, Leslie Cohen, did those policies and procedures change since our last pre-COVID meeting? They didn't necessarily change, but they implemented what our discussions were. I gave an overview, I believe, at our May 26th meeting of what the policies were. So they did not change in substance since that meeting. And yes, I can send those out via email, or they can be reviewed at New Hanover County Schools webpage. Just scroll to the bottom of the footer and click on Title IX, and you'll see policies and procedures tab, and you can view them directly from there. But I also can send those out to the committee. They're lengthy, but I can still send those out. Oh, yep, and it looks like Stephanie stated that there. So I thought we were working on those policies based on those changes. I'd like to see the final policy and procedures. So in regards to how the policy was put in place, with the Title IX regulations from the Department of Education, they gave us essentially 60 days to comply. And so what happened was when we hired the NCSBA to review and write all of our policies for New Hanover County Schools. And so how that works is that when they adopt policies, or when schools adopt policies, districts adopt their policies, what they do is they write them, and then they come up with a model policy that schools can then take and adopt in full, or they can edit to meet certain points of each district. So I did actually work with NCSBA in writing their model policy. Me and Cassie Boyd, myself, who was working with that. Well, we spent countless hours speaking and making sure that the model policy was in a good place. And so I believe that New Hanover County Schools got the model policy. They worked on it tirelessly, I believe over a period of 2 months. So New Hanover County Schools got the model policy for Title IX policy, I think was the Monday, which would have been around whatever, the Monday before that Friday. So August 14th was the implementation deadline. I believe they completed their model policy on the 14th. And then from there, New Hanover County Schools, I reviewed the model policy, offered any updates or suggestions to our attorney. And from there on Wednesday, the policies were finally in place. So there was a quick turnaround. And we knew that there was going to be a quick turnaround. I believe we referenced that on the 26th as well. So we were not able to have a robust discussion on what would be included in these policies, simply because we didn't have the time. We had a week to get the edits implemented and added to comply with Title IX guidelines by August 14th. So that's why we had to cut some of the processes that generally are in effect for a policy adoption, procedure adoption for New Hanover County Schools, first or second read. We didn't do that for these, simply because of the time crunch that was given to us by the Department of Education. So that's how and why we took the steps that we did to adopt the policies. So can I add answers to these FAQs? I can add answers to the FAQ and post that as well. I believe that is all of the chat questions. Are there any other questions on the fly that we have?
Jarrell, this is Dr. Rolison.
Yes.
Just after the principals meeting, there were some principals that had asked for the FAQs, if you could provide some written responses that we could have available. I know you've given those to us, me now twice, but if that would be really helpful to them as well.
Yes, I can provide those written questions to you. All right, is that?
Thank you.
Jarrell, there was one part of the policies, and I can't remember which one of the three it was when you were reviewing them with the Board of Education at their meeting, that that New Hampshire County Schools was opting out of because it was an optional process, something about reporting or does that ring a bell? Sorry, I'm not more, I remember hearing it because you said that something about informal, that our system wasn't prepared to do an informal, and I can't remember what that was. Could you explain that?
So under the Title IX regulations from the Department of Education, it gave K-12 schools the option to either adopt an informal resolution process or not. But if they did adopt an informal resolution process, meaning that a Title IX complaint occurs, if individuals, the complainant and the respondent agree, then we could handle it through an informal resolution process, maybe mediation or whatever agreement we could come up with to respond instead of doing the full investigation and the formal procedures. New Hampshire County Schools did not adopt an informal resolution process based on my recommendation. And the reason for that was because we would have had to train those individuals. And at this point, due to the time crunch, we just did not have the time. I am not opposed to adopting an informal process in the future, maybe reviewing next year or after that. But at the time, due to time crunch and training, we just did not have the time to adopt an informal resolution process. So what that would mean is that if there's a Title IX complaint, it would go through the formal process, which would mean that we would investigate it formally through the procedures in 1726. But if someone elected not to be involved in that process, or it did not meet the requirements of a Title IX process, then what would happen is that it would be handled according to the General Student Code of Conduct. So it wouldn't mean that these matters would just disappear. It would just be handled outside of these specific Title IX policies within the General Student Code of Conduct.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I completely agree with that, because I think just kind of where we are in our whole evolution, having something kind of strict, to start with is, and very structured, is probably the way to go. We can always develop something more as we get good at what we have. So thank you for that explanation.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. Any other questions on the update there? All right, if not, I'll move on to the next part of the agenda regarding Title IX curriculum, starting with Family Life Planning. Ms. Tucker and Ms. Emma, I'll allow you all to take the screen and share your presentation. So if you could just give a brief overview of what's going on. All right.
Yep, thank you so much for having us today. We very much appreciate it. Because this information is so important to our students, and I don't want to miss anything, and just out of a respect for the efficiency of your time, I'm going to read from a script. So I hope that that's okay. Jarrell, it says I cannot share my screen.
Okay, one moment.
Okay. Oh, there we go. There we go. Perfect. All right. Again, thank you so much for your time, everybody. We appreciate it. My name is Jennifer Tucker, and I'm a Family Life Education teacher representing my teaching team today. As you may or may not know, Family Life Education offers a 5th grade Growth and Changes course and 2 middle school courses. Stepping Stones is the original middle school course created locally in the 1980s and is considered an abstinence-based comprehensive sexuality education course which is aligned with the National Sexuality Education Standards. My Life is the alternative course adapted locally and aligned with the North Carolina Standard Course of Studies and offered to families who would prefer an abstinence-only course. For some time now, my team and I have felt the need to be more inclusive in our language and our lessons to benefit all of our students. Due to the recent updates to the National Sexuality Education Standards that Stepping Stone follows, we now actually have some standards to meet this need. So why do we want to do this and why do we want to do this now? Our current family life curriculum does not include certain national sexuality education standards that often leave our growing teen LGBTQ population feeling excluded, unwelcome, and thinking that they will not even benefit from taking our program. By implementing these standards, we've become more inclusive to all of our students. We also believe that inclusive education is the key foundation to curbing bullying and improving the mental and emotional well-being of our LGBTQ youth. So as you can see here, I'm not sure if everyone had the opportunity to look at these ahead of time, but these statistics come from the 2018 LGBTQ Youth Report. And these are just a few key statistics that reflect what we see and what we hear from many of our LGBTQ youth and truly demonstrate the need for the Family Life program to be more inclusive. On this screen, we have the 5th grade National Sexuality Education Standards that we are seeking to add actually to our grades 6 through 8 curriculum. So as you can, if you kind of glance at these, you can see that even though New Hanover County Schools is ahead of many other counties in our family life programming, we are lagging behind in LGBTQ inclusivity. On this slide, you'll see the standards that need to be met by grade 8, and our goal is to eventually be able to meet these standards as well. The third reason for why is the need to include all of our students in the Family Life Education program. Jarrell just spoke of the legal updates. Every student in New Hanover County Schools deserves to be represented at school. And lastly, we want all students to have a general understanding of LGBTQ topics to help decrease the negativity this community continues to experience, such as bullying, misconceptions, and potential discrimination. Okay, so when would we like this to happen? As soon as possible. But based on the Healthy Youth Act of 2009, parents and legal guardians shall have the right to review major curriculum changes for a period of 60 days prior to selecting an option for their student. In the case of New Hanover County Schools, we have the 3 options discussed earlier: Stepping Stones, My Life, as well as the ability to actually opt out of either of the programs. So our hope is that by the spring semester, by January, we are able to implement these new topics into our programs. How do we do this? Well, our plan of implementation includes getting the parents the information and then collecting parent permission for the kids to take our course. So the parents, we will post information for the parents that they get every year before they sign their child up for our classes. And so what we would do is we would give them the updated scope and sequence chart, course descriptions, curriculum that can be viewed in their child's school, as well as an open house video that we post online. So we would send this information to them through email, we would post it on our website, and we would also send a call out to parents to alert them of the opportunity to look at the revised curriculum. So then it becomes collecting parent permission. And the way we would do this would clearly depend on where we are. If it's a plan A, what we would do is we would actually collect permission forms. We would hand these out in the students' PE classes, which, believe it or not, is how we used to do it. If we are plan B or C, then what we would do is we would send a Google form to parents via email. And again, attach that information so the parents are aware of what they're signing their child up for. So you may or may not have had the opportunity to see the resources that we sent ahead of the meeting today. First, we sent a Google Classroom, which has sample lessons that could potentially be used to include this gender inclusivity information. And if you haven't checked that out, you can get on at any point and look and see what we have there. And then here are links to all of the information that we talked about today. So that's all we have right now. Are there any questions?
Yes, I had a question for Ms. Tucker.
Yes.
With this implementation, are there any issues that you could foresee or have, questions that you all in your group may have thought of, and that would be important for the committee to know before?
Well, I think that there's always potential for issues to come up, but we very, very rarely in our department see that because we give the parents the option. Currently what we're asking for is we're asking for this information in the Stepping Stones program. And so, if parents have a big issue, they have the opportunity to put their kids in My Life or the opt-out option. So it is pretty rare for us to see any sort of issues.
The Jennifer and others on the team, I appreciate the work that you guys have done. I'm thinking about this, not all parents are as open-minded as others. And I think I remember way back when abstinence only was the only choice, and I just couldn't even believe that some parents really were going to do that, knowing that kids will be kids. But do you plan on having like any like an in-person open house or some sort of event that you can parents can come and you could talk them how to look at the Google Classroom, talk them through what this means, because unfortunately this is still a very frightening or a very divisive topic. And the PTA is all in support of this, but that doesn't mean that all of our members, are in support of this. So the PTA Council would be willing to co-host that with you or spread the word about that. But have you given any more thought about, a more comprehensive rollout?
I love that idea. And we do typically do an open house for the parents that is face-to-face. Which if that is a possibility, then we would absolutely be open to providing that. I guess it would depend on where we are in our world at that point. But yeah, I think that's a great idea.
We're allowed to have 25 people inside, but we can always have, several, or, listen to me, I'm dictating and I'm not the one that has to do it, but we could have, more than one, or we could do a Zoom call. But I just think there's a lot of parents who are struggling, to even learn how to use Google Classrooms with their kid. They might need a little more help on how to get in there and just look at it. And maybe they'll change their mind once they've seen the depth that you guys are going into, and you're not encouraging kids to do anything or discouraging, you're just giving them the facts.
Right. Yes, I think that's a great idea. And that's kind of the idea of the 60-day preview period, that parents can view what we're doing and that they have the ability to ask questions and see where it's a very transparent program.
Also, to add to that, Stephanie, I think it would be a really cool idea to train the teachers in some kind of LGBTQ curriculum so that when the kids leave your classroom and leave family life education, like programming, they go into their school and they have a whole culture around inclusivity with the teachers in different classrooms they visit. I know that's future and the teachers are already going through lots of training, but it's a help to grow with your program.
I'm glad you say that. I actually had reached out to Sexual Health Initiatives for Teens of North Carolina in May, and we had talked about that potentially. How could we, my goal is to maybe eventually, fingers crossed, have a required training for teachers and staff kind of similar to the darkness to the light, and others that we
Yeah.
are required to do. That's
We, as for like RCC, I know our LGBTQ advocate has always been very good at teaching her safe zones in her LGBTQ curriculum. So, I mean, even if it's just for family life educators, you're welcome to chit chat with her and see what you guys can do.
I love that. Anytime that we can collaborate with the community, we are very open to that. I love that, and I will reach out to you.
Ms. Tucker, this is
Yes.
Dr. Rolison.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm at home, so I don't have my video on. Is it possible that initial implementation it may be something that teachers or families could look at as adding to stepping stones in the spring, as opposed to, I don't want parents to opt out of stepping stones completely because of maybe the family's not ready for this conversation yet, but is there a way for it to be taught and delivered that it could be an add-on to stepping stones, not a full replacement in the curriculum yet?
We did discuss that as well. I apologize, my dog is now barking as well. So we have spoken about that, but the reality is that, within our discussions and our conversations, that we have this inclusivity language. So it's kind of already intertwined, as far as the inclusivity language goes. But there is, that is the possibility that the team could discuss, that it would be, the parents opting out. But again, I almost feel like that would be the My Life option. I don't know if anyone on my team wants to jump in and add to that at all. I think there's a few of us on the call right now.
Yeah, because that was kind of one of my questions too, is it an all or nothing, program? And what do the kids do that opt out of it all? I mean, do they just go into a study hall, or do they just learn, PE facts? Yeah.
That's a great question. So yes, we pull the kids out of their PE classes. So the kids who aren't signed up for our programs do in fact stay in PE class during that time.
Is it possible that we reach out to Kim O'Brien in professional development and make this topic a professional development option on the teacher work days for professional development, or as part of Summer Institute? I know that's a long way off, but we got to be forward thinking about if we want to have this training with the teachers, which I wholeheartedly agree. Not that they need one more thing on their plate, but I think we have to be intentional about making it a topic that's worth learning about.
I love that idea. Yes, I think we should get on that. I love that.
So, Ms. Tucker,
Yes.
regarding next steps in the timeline. So I know you said you want to present to parents the update course and description, and then collect parent permissions. So what does it look like for you or your group from a timeline perspective on the next steps? I know you said spring 21, so what are the next steps for you all to start accomplishing?
So our next steps are, we actually have, I believe that we have a time to set up to refilm our open house. Fingers crossed that we're able to do this. We were very optimistic. We already have materials ready to roll out that were attached in this presentation, and ready to kind of get that ball rolling just because of the 60 days. Our students are currently signed up year round. So we already have our spring semester kids signed up. So we would have to start the whole sign up process over again.
And the packets that would be put in our curriculum notebooks have been completed. They just need to be delivered to the schools pending approval today. We've gone ahead and prepared those packets to put in our curriculum notebooks at each of the middle schools. So parents are ready to view the material, and the teachers will be too, as soon as the optimistic yes goes through. We're ready on that end.
We're very optimistic.
Is there any difference in curriculum delivery with remote versus face-to-face instruction?
As far as the material that we're presenting?
Yeah, and like, and how you would present it?
I mean, we've included all of our information. We actually rolled out our Google Classrooms yesterday in the middle schools. And so it's obviously a very different delivery. However, it's the material is all the same.
I mean, is there any participation or I need because I just get a little concerned with, middle school and high school are such, times of, actually, we're not even doing high school, but middle school is such a time of students are just kind of finding themselves or embarrassed enough about life in general. And now I'm having to be on a screen and have people looking at me while I'm looking at you. And I normally am a sit in the back of the classroom kind of gal, and that's not me, but I'm saying, suppose I was, and I just want to blend in. I don't mind hearing it, but I don't want to be front and center. So, and this is kind of one of those,
yes.
Topics that is a little more uncomfortable.
So we actually are not live. We are asynchronous in our classrooms due to the inability to really kind of manage what the kids might potentially say or that discomfort level on the screen. And so our Google Classrooms actually are asynchronous. And so that the kids don't have to. And actually one of the perks of being on Google Classroom is I feel like you're able to have conversations with kids who do sit in the back of the classroom and are really shy and don't say anything, but they're willing to kind of communicate with you typing. And making comments through Google Classroom. So that's been a real positive of this Plan C.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
So just to wrap up on this component, so it sounds like you guys are ready to go. And I know that there might still be some discussions that want to be had through other Title IX committee members. So I'm just trying to think of a process that would allow for us to move forward while also not just dismissing any other concerns that Title IX committee members might have. So what I would say for any other Title IX committee members that have questions or concerns regarding the implementation, you could send me an email and then I can facilitate making sure with Ms. Tucker and Ms. Emma that we get collaboration in this process while also being mindful of the timeline. Nelson and Lisa, do you guys have any thoughts regarding next steps, providing the information to parents and things such as that, or any other ideas about the process of implementation for these LGBTQ plus inclusivity updates for Stepping Stone?
I just want to say I'm very supportive of this change. I think it's great. What's resonating to me is that one statistic that our LGBTQ students feel like only 5% of them are supported by their teachers. I think that's very, that breaks my heart. So I hope this goes. I think this will hopefully go to make them feel more supported. So I really appreciate Jen and Jane, you bringing this to us. So no, I'm in full support of this, and I'm going forward.
Glad to hear that. And Leslie, thank you for your support in the chat. This is something that we all know has been a long time coming. Mm-hmm. And, as family life educators, we have seen the missed opportunities time and time again in the classroom of the kids who were just begging for additional support and to feel more included. And so I'm just really proud of the direction that Family Life is going and the support of the Title IX committee. And it's all just kind of coming together at almost a magical time with the Title IX changes and kids who are LGBTQ positive are being more open. Our society is being more educated about it, and it's time that we help the Family Life Education team step up and help prevent any potential bullying and make every kid feel safe and included in our programming and in the schools. So kudos to the middle school family life educators. They've really worked hard on this, and they've been attending intensive trainings all summer long. And if anybody can do it well, it's that group for sure.
I'd like to add my thanks and echo what Ms. Emma said, what the chair said. I'm in full support. I think, in all of our curriculum, it's hard for students to feel supported and to connect with it if they don't see themselves in it. And so we definitely have to do everything that we can to connect with those groups who do feel marginalized, especially around such an important issue at such an important moment. So I do thank you guys for your work, and I'm very excited about these changes.
We very much appreciate your support, both of the board members. That means a lot to us.
Okay. So
can I have one more thing, Jarrell? I'm sorry. I also wanted to mention, this aligns very much with the work that we've done in the middle schools with the EYES project. And in the climate surveys that the schools implemented, the 4 schools that are doing that program, a better response to the middle schools for our LGBT communities has been a need. And so I'd like to reach out to you, Ms. Tucker and Ms. Emma, to plan an opportunity to collaborate as part of the sustainability of that EYES grant, and carrying forward some of this work so that it's not working in 2 separate silos.
I would love to be involved.
All right. So thank you.
I'll send you an email.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for the time.
So what I'll do next is I'll allow everyone, even though we sent the presentation out yesterday, so I'll allow a week for everyone to review the materials and provide me any emails if you have questions, concerns. And then after that week, I'll follow up with Ms. Emma and Ms. Tucker to go ahead and distribute those materials to the schools to get that ball rolling.
Yeah, and I'd also like to say, I added in the chat, Leslie realized it's smart enough to know that if you're not in our system, you can't access our Google Classrooms. So if anybody's outside of the system, which is predominantly almost everybody in here, I can get those materials emailed to you guys so that you can review them outside of the classroom. I'll get up with Kim, Jarrell's assistant, to get that in an email. Is that okay, Jarrell?
Yep, that works.
All right.
Thank you. So continuing with the agenda, next we'll have Ms. Jackson and a discussion in cooperation with Coastal Horizons and RCCC.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I am Kristen Jackson. I'm the Director of Student Support Services for New Hanover County Schools. We've been working really hard in the Education Committee. Let me get on here and see if I can share my screen. All right. Here we go. Okay. So this is the update from the Education Committee. So a lot has gone on during COVID, but just a reminder that last year, one thing that we implemented was the shifting boundaries curriculum in middle school. So this is a partnership with the Rape Crisis Center and the Domestic Violence Shelter. And we last year decided that all middle school health teachers would be trained in 6th grade to be able to present this curriculum each year. And that occurred last year with the help of the Rape Crisis Center and the Domestic Violence Shelter, who I cannot thank Janie and Jenna enough. They devoted hours and hours of time to co-teach lessons with our teachers so that they felt comfortable delivering this curriculum. So I know that Janie earlier sent me some information, but the PowerPoint had already gone out. So Janie, do you want to add anything about the shifting boundaries and where we are?
Yeah, I actually can just email it out after we get done talking, but it's just the data that we collected from last year with the Hotspot Mapping. And what the Hotspot Mapping is it's in the last session of shifting boundaries. And we give the kids a map that's blank of their school, and it will say different locations in the school, like bathrooms, gym, locker rooms, classrooms, etc. And the kids are able to color in where they feel comfortable and where they don't feel comfortable with the different crayons. So then we collect each individual map, and put it into our system, which we use SurveyMonkey, and it charts out all the data. So I just have that in a few slides. So I'll email that out to you guys afterwards. But every year, I've done this for a few years. Last year was the first year we actually implemented in every single middle school for 6th grade, but around 40–50% of students are somewhat unsafe to unsafe in certain areas of the school. A lot of the common areas are cafeteria because all the big windows, it's very crowded. Parking lot because of strangers. 49% they said library. I checked the notes on that, and a lot of kids because they don't like the library, so they even were honest with that. And then what else? I'm looking at the notes if that helps you guys. The gym, 49% because there is mixed genders in there, and they also are very crowded, and so on. So I'll send that to you guys. And then common types of bullying and harassment. The kids actually wrote this down on their maps and suggested this. The common types they heard were cussing, inappropriate language, body shaming, fighting, bullying, staring, etc. And then the comments why they felt unsafe in these specific areas that they colored were because they were uncomfortable, it was unpredictable, invasion of boundaries, confined spaces, and most of the time lacked some kind of supervision. And in common ways that the kids actually addressed, said that we could address the bullying and harassment in the schools was talk to the students, create safer spaces, help us report the problems, be alert, teach empathy, introduce us, connect us with older students, help us build our self-esteem, add more trusted adults into these areas, and so on, enforce more specific anti-bullying rules, be inclusive. So all the things we're trying to do right now, so that the data just shows what we're trying. But yeah, that's pretty much shifting boundaries. And this year we've already talked to a lot of the teachers. They're ready to implement again. Virtually, we're going to do Google Slides or an actual PDF like booklet version. So it's the teacher's decision on which way they want to go.
Okay, thanks, Janie.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I can't tell you how great this partnership has been working with Coastal and with the Domestic Violence Shelter. They have brought so many resources to us. So that was one that we were able to implement pretty quickly last year because it was free. Let's be honest, we didn't have to spend money on it because we didn't have any money. So then, if you remember, then last year we asked the county for allocations and some reoccurring funds for some programs. The first one was the Darkness to Light Stewards of Children, bringing in the bystander for our high schools, and Safer Smarter Kids, which is a K-5 program. So I have that information for you today. So as far as Darkness to Light, it is an adult focused sexual abuse prevention training program. And it pretty much teaches them to prevent, recognize, and react responsibly if they see any type of child abuse going on. We started this as a collaboration with the Carousel Center last year in August of 2019. And we have almost trained the entire school system. In the meantime, there was a law that came out that requires local school boards to adopt a training program. So we were actually ahead of the curve on this one. When this came out, we probably had trained at least 500 or 600 people. So now that every other year, there is a law that states that we must train our staff. So for this year, let's see. You can see as of 8/25 in face-to-face or small group video sessions, we've done 642. And we really took advantage of teachers' time during COVID, teachers, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and we got access to their online training. And so far we have trained 2,147 staff members on that. So what will happen in October is principals and directors, I will send them an attestation. They will look at the training log and attest that all of their staff has been trained. and we'll move on from there. So again, we'll have to train again in 2 years. I don't know if we'll use Stewards of Children or if we'll use a different program to kind of mix it up a little bit. But we are really pretty much have trained everybody in the school system on that one. So thank you to Amy Feith and to Tanya Jordan, who really led that initiative and got all these people trained. The next prevention program I want to talk about is one we're starting very soon. This is called Bringing in the Bystander. It is a high school program, and it teaches participants to become positive bystanders in instances of sexual and interpersonal violence and harassment. So this is also a partnership between New Hanover County Schools, the Rape Crisis Center, and Domestic Violence Shelter. This will be taught in high school health and PE, which most kids take that in 9th grade unless they move into the state, and it was not a requirement somewhere else. It will be 4 lessons of 90 minutes each. And one great thing that really helped us, and we need to be very thankful for from the county, is that they gave us reoccurring funds to actually, we are contracting with the Rape Crisis Center, and then they are subcontracting with domestic violence, who actually are sending facilitators who are highly trained into these classes to talk about this subject. So the health and PE teachers will be in there, but they will not be the ones facilitating the lessons. The trained trainers will be doing that. This fall, in just about 2 weeks, we're going to ask that all health and PE teachers actually participate in a virtual program. So the instructors are going to actually do the program with the PE teachers as the participants or the children, so that they can see before this rolls out in their classes what it's like to be a student in this class. And then we are also inviting other teachers. Anybody who wants to participate can participate, and we're going to certify them as a trusted adult. So what that means is if you take this training about being an upstanding bystander, then you're going to get this certificate, and kids are going to know that you're trained in that. And if they have issues, they can come to you. Okay. So one thing I really liked about this training is just talking about healthy relationships in dating. So I put some slides up from some of the from the first unit, so you could see kind of where it goes. I mean, it does talk about sexual violence and sexual assault, but it also talks about healthy relationships, which is something that has been missing from our curriculum in general. So you can see this is a slide from it. So it talks about what makes good dating, respect and understanding, respecting boundaries, being supportive of each other. And then it goes into, what did I do? They have all kinds of fancy transitions in theirs. What makes it unhealthy? So what should you look for if you're a student and you are in a relationship? What is an unhealthy relationship? Because sometimes they've only seen unhealthy relationships, and that's normal to them. So talking to them about things that are normal, healthy and unhealthy, compared to what they've seen their whole lives. So you can see here, what makes dating unhealthy is disrespectful, no communication, the jealous, the controlling, the humiliating. And we actually, from the high school counselors, we have heard that this is very, very needed. So we're very excited about this program. Okay, so that will start. Our timeline for bringing in the bystander is sometime within the next few weeks. We want to train. Then, because we are behind on health and PE already, what we're going to do is we are going to offer it at the schools to whoever wants to take it. 9th through 12th grade, if they're not taking PE next semester, and that will kind of be our pilot program. And then in the second semester, we'll start with all 9th grade PE classes. But we're going to offer it up to everybody to start with from the schools. The last program that was funded by the county is the K-5 prevention program called Safer, Smarter Kids. And this is an abuse of prevention education curriculum for elementary kids. It arms kids with the tools and language they need to protect themselves from abuse. And while it does talk about your private areas and that sort of thing, I really like this program because it talks about what your rights are as a child and how to say no when things feel odd. So it really teaches some advocacy skills. We will be training all school counselors to do these lessons. There are 5 to 8 lessons per year per grade. What we need to decide today at this meeting is if we are going to make this an opt-in or opt-out program for students. So do we want to have parental permission for these programs before we implement it in the classrooms? Well, I want to show you this really cute video, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to share the sound. So you'll have to tell me if the sound is shared. Do you know, Jarrell?
Kristen, when you get ready to share, there's a checkbox on the bottom left-hand corner of your share screen that says share audio.
Okay. Oh boy.
So you have to unshare to start with.
So I can't do it right from there?
No, you have to do an unshare for a moment to go back and check that the box is ticked so that the audio is coming through.
How do I stop sharing? Stop share. Stop. Okay.
Now go back into share
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that the bottom left-hand checkbox, it should say share audio.
Yes, you are the best. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So I'm just going to show you this 4th grade video. I'm going to start at 6 minutes into it because it's a lot about the Bill of Rights to start with. But you can see, so everyone has videos that go with it, puppets with the young kids, just so you can get an idea of how they teach advocacy.
1, 2, 1. We know what the Bill of Rights is. Let's create our kids' Bill of Rights. These are rights that both kids and adults should respect. No one has the right to hurt you or make you feel afraid or do something wrong.
Kristen, it's not sharing the video.
Period to you. You have the right to feel comfortable, secure, and happy in your
Just go back to make sure you're sharing your screen, Kristen.
Okay, hold on.
When you go back to the share screen, make sure you're sharing that actual video.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
While she's getting that, Anita.
Something is not okay, then you need to use your voice to say stop or no and show people that you're serious. Your voice has power. Remember that if someone doesn't hear your voice or take you seriously, you need to use your network of trusted adults to get help.
Last week when we were working on our class projects, I used my voice to stand up and say that our science project needed to have more color. I was nervous to stand up to the group, but my voice has power. We even got an A.
That's a great example of the power of your voice. Now let's talk about respect.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T. You have the right to respect, and that means that you should be treated like you are important and valuable. No one has the right to disrespect you. You are important, just for being...
Okay. Now I have to figure out how to stop that.
We respect, don't want to feel that.
So you can see that they all come with videos. So they're one is if we're still in remote learning, we're going to have access to them for kids. And 2, the kids, they like videos. So that is where we are with Safer, Smarter Kids. We are actually in the implementation part of that. And then the rest of the presentation is I just
Looks like Kristen is frozen. So because she's frozen, she said next to do is to decide if we.
So you could see what is, and I'll answer questions.
Kristen, you were frozen for about 30 seconds. Can you repeat that?
Oh, hi, everybody. It says that I'm unstable is what it says. Oh, no, it says my internet connection is unstable. Yes, so that is about all that we have from the Education Committee. It's a lot. We have a lot to implement this year. So I will take questions if you have them, but we really need to decide how we're going to approach K-5 parents with this program.
There was one question from Stephanie Craybill. Stephanie, do you want to just ask it, or would you like to?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's fine. I didn't know. I was trying to write it down while I was thinking as she was going, so I wouldn't forget. But I did my homework and read all the slides, so I made notes. But so we have a lot of these new programs out there, and I apologized if I missed any Education Action Team meetings, so I could have given this input to start with. But I really think that we need to make a concentrated effort to let parents know about all of these new programs, not only for the content, but also for the intent that the school system is addressing the needs of, all the issues that have been occurring. So if nothing else, that it assuages their fears and their concerns that the school system is doing nothing. And if we as the PTA Council can't even share that with parents, then again, it might look like it's like not above board, even though it is, what I'm saying, it is completely above board and the programs are good. Again, like kind of back to the same question that I asked Jen Tucker, is there a way that these programs can be previewed? I kind of like the idea of just putting it out there as part of your counselor's lesson, rather than actually having parents opt in or out. But, I would support either way. The only one that you might opt in would be like the dating thing. Maybe some parents might not like what you're telling, but for the little kids on how to advocate for yourself, I don't see a problem with that from a parent's point of view at all.
So there is within each grade level a little bit about private parts and what they consider icky touching. So I think that is where we would probably get a little bit of pushback from students. That is why I was wondering if the first year we really needed to get parent permission to kind of gauge where we are with participation and where parent comfort level is with the inappropriate touching lessons within this curriculum.
Well, if we're going to start it right now, and like during our virtual learning, many parents will be, or I shouldn't say that, some parents will be able to sit right there and watch along with them.
Right.
So they'll see it right there. So that's one way around that,
Well, some of them, you have to remember, we have thousands of kids in these remote learning centers right now that are not at home with their parents while they're getting this information. We would prefer to do this face-to-face and not start in virtual with K-5 because of the content. So we're hoping that we can start when we get back to school. Now, for virtual all year, we'll have to look at it differently. But again, kids are in all different settings, daycare, learning programs, grandma's, mom, sitting in the library, sitting at mom's work. So we need to be a little bit conscious about what we're presenting to kids in situations where there's nobody to ask questions or discuss with after. Or for some kids, it will be to disclose that actually someone has touched me inappropriately.
Unfortunately.
And Stephanie, to your point about having a discussion about the curriculum, we actually have been talking about this curriculum and these trainings for a good long time. I know Kristen especially has done a lot of homework on the K-5 curriculum. Question was a tough one. I think it was a real challenge to find something that was acceptable. So Kristen, do you want to talk about that a little bit? I mean, we started those discussions, I think, last year.
We did. So we did start those discussions last year, and we looked at several programs. Most of them focus specifically on sexual abuse and more shorter programs, I'm usually developed by a state curriculum or a state advocacy group from other states. So this one we liked, one, because it didn't just talk about the sexual abuse, it talked about how to avoid sexual abuse, which is really what we want the kids to know. But it also talks about advocating. And there's a little bit about bullying and going with the group. Like if a group says that it's okay, it doesn't have to be okay. So we looked at really a lot of curriculums before we decided on this one.
Yeah, I appreciate that work.
Yeah, and I can talk to you outside of this meeting, but you or Tanya about coming to one of our PTA council Zoom meetings, and where you can just kind of like lay all this stuff out and then get questions, and then we can figure out what we need to do, if anything else, to make sure parents are comfortable. But I don't think I personally don't think a lot of parents are going to be uncomfortable with this training. But I liked Amy's comment in there when she said, let's opt out instead of opt in. So you have to just, I don't know if that's how the school board usually does things.
Yes, I think that's really a school board decision, because right now those programs are opt-in, or surveys of this nature are opt-in, anything to do with that. So, we'll do what you tell us to do. So I don't know at what level that decision needs to be made, I guess is what I'm saying.
Just a
actually, can we ask Ms. Tagner what is that policy still on?
Hi. So I was looking at your policy and the statutes. The policy 7182 covers sex education. And then there was another one that's more specific to counseling for reproductive and matters. This talks about the parents or guardians may choose to withhold their consent for any or part of the entire sex education portion. So it's not entirely clear. It says they'll be automatically assigned for high school students to the sex ed portion, and then the parents can choose to withhold consent. So it's an opt-out at that level. The statute talks about parents having local boards should adopt policy or shall adopt policies to provide opportunities either for parents and legal guardians to consent or for parents and legal guardians to withhold consent. So it really is a school board decision. And there are some things that applies to, such as sexually transmitted diseases and reproductive health and safety education programs. So it sounds like it would be a board decision, and it would require either amending one of the existing policies or adopting a new policy.
So with that said, thank you, Ms. Dagner. Just to get a consensus from the entire committee, I could make a Google form if we want to, make a formal recommendation from the committee regarding if we're opt in and opt out, and just a majority rule type of scenario. I can get that sent out tomorrow, and then from there, provide that information to Ms. Estep and Nelson to carry it to the board, and go from there. That sound acceptable, Ms. Estep?
I think so. I mean, I guess it would depend on if we're asking, and Ms. Dagner, correct me if I'm wrong, we wouldn't have to go the policy route, or would we be pulling this out of and asking for a vote on this, or were you going to be setting policy overall?
It would, I guess my recommendation would be that the policy committee look at the applicable policies. I'm not sure how this committee normally makes recommendations, or if this committee has the authority to put something forward to the board. I'm just apologize for being unfamiliar with the process of the committees, but certainly we could add something to the next policy committee meeting to address one of these policies, and I could get the School Board Association, if they have a model policy that we would be getting to anyway, go ahead and pull that up out of order and have it considered. If Mr. Bilyeu is all right with that as the chair of the policy committee.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of the quickest way to get this. If you're, Ms. Jackson, if you are saying that you're not wanting to do this until we go back face to face, would you say?
I would say we're probably at least second semester from implementing this, because by the time we make the decision and get everybody trained and make sure everybody has all the materials, it will be second semester. So we definitely have time, and we can work on the training and things while that's ongoing.
Okay, so it might be a good idea to, Jarrell, if you want to get the recommendation from the committee, and then that might, I guess, hold some weight. And I'm just exploring this pathway, but that might hold some weight to pass that recommendation to the policy committee and saying this is a recommendation coming out of the committee. Is that a possible route, Ms. Stagner?
I think
this,
that
or
sounds,
could that,
yeah.
would that, or that,
sounds fun.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll send a Google form to the committee members, just simply yes or no, for opt in or opt out for Safer Smarter Kids. And then once I get that feedback, I'll leave it open for a couple days to a week, and provide that to the board policy subcommittee, and then go from there. All right. So thank you for the presentation, Ms. Jackson. We had the Title IX look back on the agenda as well, but we had a lot of good things before that. So we'll park and lot the Title IX look back for the next committee meeting. I think the next date for the next Title IX committee meeting is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday or next month. Let me confirm what the next date is. Give me one moment. Okay, so the next date would be October 20th. You all can see with the screen there. In the interim, I will send any other updates or emails that I have jotted down here. And so be on the lookout for the Google form for the opt-in, opt-out, and we'll go from there. We have to leave pretty quickly because of the next meeting for the board. So apologize for the rushing.
Hey, Jarrell, real quick, I will also try to coordinate getting all of the information of the Family Life updates from the Google Classroom to you, so that it can all go in one email with your form, possibly.
Okay, that works. And same thing for Janie. If you want
Yeah.
to provide me the data, I can send that out as well. We can send them all out collectively.
And Jarrell, also the answers to those FAQ questions, if you have those. Yes. So we kind of like it's almost like meeting, group memory.
Okay. I'll have all those in my notes, and I'll provide all that in one message. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you all next time.